let's go further. There is in Islam, as in many of the traditions, a mystical tradition. Can religious and mystical experiences tell us about God? For example, Islamic mystics, do they know more about God than Islamic non-mystics? Or for that matter, do they know more than analytical philosophers of religion?
There's a great story of a great philosopher, Ibn Rushd, who met with a great mystic who was also a scholar and a philosopher, but he's primarily known for his mysticism. And his name was Ibn Arabi. So Averroes said to him, is what we arrive at the same as what you arrive at? In other words, is our discursive knowledge of God the same as your experiential knowledge of God? And Ibn Arabi is reported to have said, yes. And then Ibn Rushd smiled, and then Ibn Arabi said no. And so I think, in the Islamic tradition, experiential knowledge of God is far more profound than discursive knowledge of God. One of the great scholars and mystics of Islam, Ibn Ata'illah, who was from Egypt, he said that the attempt to prove the existence of God is from the perspective of the absence of God. And then he says, but when was God absent that he needed to be proved? And so the idea is that there are people that genuinely experience God. In that same book, which is called The Aphorisms, translated by Victor Danner, a good translation in English, one of the things that he says is, whoever knows the truth sees the truth in everything. And so the Quran says we created the heavens and the earth with truth. So there is goodness in everything. And that's why that knowledge of God, which is a natural knowledge of God, is much more powerful than the artificial knowledge that comes through this discursive thinking. Intuition, and this is what Imam al-Ghazali writes in his famous Munqidh min al-Dalal, the savior from error. He writes that he studied these different ways of knowing, like epistemology, and concluded that the most profound way was the way of direct experience, what's called in Arabic ma'rifah, or gnosis of God. It's a direct, immediate experience of God. And it's far more profound, especially for the person, obviously, that experiences it, but to believe in it is a type of experience. So those of us who might not have had the experience, we believe in those who have. And certainly the prophets are the foremost among them.
For those of us who have not had such experiences and seek to know God, are we in an inferior position then?
I think in terms of a degree of understanding, absolutely. The problem is, obviously, there are a lot of charlatans that abuse this type of knowledge for those who believe in it that haven't experienced it, and you find that too many of our religions and of our sects are filled with these type of people who claim to have this knowledge. Right. And usually one of the signs that they don't have the knowledge is that they make the claim that they have the knowledge.
I like that.
That's our tradition. It's a big red flag, because the true Gnostics are people that Imam al-Ghazali says that a tree that has great fruit, the branches hang low. And so there's a type of humility that comes with that, that they don't see themselves as anything.
I've worried that if I had, which I've not had, that type of mystical experience, I would not believe it. I would think it's some neurochemical imbalance that I had, or not enough sleep, or some other explanation. So what is it that can differentiate?
We actually have a whole science of that. So we have a science in our tradition that deals with mystical experiences. So, for instance, there's experience that are outward terrestrial sensory experiences. Then there's outward terrestrial meaning experiences, outward celestial meaning experiences. Then there's inward terrestrial sensory experiences, like, for instance, some certain psychotropic drugs are very similar. Like I actually believe that I had a profound mystical experience on fentanyl. It wasn't illegal. It was actually given to me in the hospital. But I had an extraordinary experience, and William James writes about this in Varieties of Religious Experience. So I think drugs, unfortunately, are one of the vehicles for opening a lot of people up to the possibility, because there's an experience that there's more here than meets the eye, quite literally. And I think materialists try to reduce those things to neurological phenomena. But the reality of it is that consciousness itself is a spiritual experience. People ask me, I want to have a spiritual experience. My response to that is, you are having a spiritual experience. It's just mediated through your sensoria. But this whole thing is mystical. Consciousness is mysticism. The fact that we can communicate and speak in language, the fact that I can say these words, I don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know where yours are coming from. The fact that I'm speaking at this rapid rate and your mind is digesting all of these things, putting them together. You have all this past experience that enables you to even understand what I'm talking about. This phenomena, which is happening constantly, it's miraculous. And it's just amazing that people in this kind of perfunctory attitude towards existence, I feel sorry for them.